All right, so we already talked about the causes of the Civil War. So to kind of break that down and give you an idea what it looked, you know, the United States became a country, and in American Sign Language, this means the United States of America, as Mr. Cody was passing through. So we're at one point right here. Then 1860 comes around, Lincoln gets elected, and then we break up. All right, so where we're at in the curriculum is that we were here once we became a country, but now we're apart. Eventually we're going to come back together, but we're right here. So let's talk about how we got right here. All right, one of the things I already told you is that Lincoln gets elected in 1860. Did we mention slavery yet?
Oh, yeah, slavery.
Slavery was another one.
Slavery, absolutely.
Which means the abolitionists wanted to end slavery. Mm-hmm. Another cause we have was, you know, the South felt that they were losing power in the national government.
And slavery.
Slavery, we didn't mention that yet. Slavery's one. The event that's going to get it going is going to be the attack on Fort Sumter. And did we mention slavery yet?
No, I don't. We might have left slavery out.
Okay, so that's going to be a big one.
Might have been a little bit important in why this war is fought.
It comes up often by the time students get to us, but if we recall, and we mentioned this before, when we're looking at like a trick question that kind of comes up that they like to sting you on, is that what was Lincoln's goal when the Civil War began? He wanted to keep the country together. That was his goal.
Yeah, it's a misconception.
It wasn't a factor.
It was actually a misconception that Abraham Lincoln was an abolitionist, because he certainly was not. Lincoln just didn't want slavery to spread to the newly acquired American Western territories. He wanted slavery to be contained to the states in which it already existed. His eventual beliefs will evolve throughout the Civil War, where he will recognize that in order for us to actually win the war, we will have to get rid of this.
So we have a couple of charts we can start off with. This one just kind of gives us the breakdown of the North and South, and the next one will
whenever people are going to fight, whenever there's about to be a war or a boxing match, MMA, or even a game, there's always like, all right, who should win? You know, and like on paper, you know, the North should have easily won this war, you know, because of all of their different advantages. I think the next one even shows it even better.
Sure, yeah. I mean, because here, you know, we have diverse economy based on industry and agricultural compared to the South that's agricultural. Large cities undergoing rapid urbanization have rural, mostly farming.
The population booming. The Irish potato famine is going on. We have a massive wave of immigrants coming from Ireland and from Germany. Population is increasing because people are moving. That whole urbanization of people moving from rural areas to come work in the cities of the North, because it's steady jobs. It's like, I know I can show up at work 10 hours, make $2 an hour. Great. We're agricultural based. There were so many variables outside of your control that depend whether or not you're going to make money.
And with that population going up, I mean, we spoke about this quite a bit. You know, you had certain immigrants that were getting right off the boat and then enlisting right in the Army.
Yeah.
You know, 3 square meals a day was a very, very good thing, a good reason to enlist in the Army. And of course, there's a whole other camaraderie and all that other stuff. Favored federal spending on internal improvements and wanted higher tariffs. They opposed federal spending. When we're looking at the Northeast, was economically linked with the Midwest. The South sought to expand by creating more slave states. And then you have, you know, in terms of what their economies were based on, free labor here, slave labor here.
And by free labor, don't think it means like somebody's working for you for free.
Thank you for catching me on that.
It's like free enterprise
yes.
labor. And the free enterprise is a term we're going to be using throughout this entire school year, over and over and over again, where the businesses get to decide what they're going to make, how much they're going to make, what they're going to pay the workers, so forth and so on.
So this does nice, but this one really gives you an idea of who had the advantages. Now, there's going to be certain advantages you can see here, and then there's going to be certain advantages that you don't see that we'll kind of get into. Population, I mean, what we had, like 21 million compared to about 11 million or 9 million, and of course, 3 million of the population in the South, you're talking about slaves. Farm acreage, South edges out.
Yeah, when we get into it, and this chart really doesn't show it. The next chart might show it a little bit better. You know, the South's not so much. But like, I make the comparison in my classroom that the South at the beginning of the Civil War was a lot like the American Patriots at the beginning of the American Revolution. They didn't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of ability to fight. There were no factories in America then. But the South is fighting a defensive war. They're fighting on their home territory. Every Southerner owned their own gun. because it's like if you wanted to eat meat, you had to go shoot your meal. Where in the North, it's like, oh, I'm hungry. I want a steak dinner. You went down to the butcher and they cut you a piece of steak.
Meat packing plants in the cities, yeah.
You know, so the South was much more prepared to fight a war as far as their soldiers. They had better military leaders than the North did. But the North's ability to fight, ability to create war, mass-produce weapons, mass-produce blankets and uniforms and bullets and cannons, you name it, and their ability to transport those goods and those men from the North to the South in a very short period of time. Our railroad mileage is going to be one of the single biggest factors in the North's victory over the South. Your ability to resupply your army almost overnight is huge. Telegraph communications. Telegraph at the time is the text message of the 1860s. Abraham Lincoln at times was actually giving direct orders to his generals in the field as commander-in-chief. He'd be sitting in the White House, say, tell so-and-so to do this, beep, 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 beep. At the speed of electricity can travel, that commander would get that order in the field. Where in the South, it was like, write a message, give it to a guy on horseback. He's got to travel 20 miles. Let's say that takes him 3 hours to do that, and then give the message. Well, the North was able to communicate in 3 seconds. The South was able to communicate in 3 hours. The logistics of war is one of the main reasons why the North is going to win.
Without a doubt. And of course, some of the advantages that you don't see on here that Mr. Cogan just mentioned, you know, Robert E. Lee is a military leader. Yeah, that's an advantage.
Graduated second in his class at West Point.
Yep, absolutely.
I think Grant was 29th out of 32.
He wasn't really high up there.
29th out of 32.
You know, he wasn't the most accomplished student that you think he would be. The other thing that Mr. Cogan brought up in terms of what you can't see as an advantage, most of this war is going to be fought in the South. So if it's being fought in the South, they're going to have the advantage. They're going to be able to use guerrilla warfare tactics, hit and run. They're more familiar with the local areas. There's pros and cons to that. You're fighting there, you have the advantages. However, the disadvantages of that is that you're fighting a war in your own backyard, pretty much. So
I always make the advantage of like home field advantage, especially in warfare. I equate it to like playing Manhunt.
Sure.
You know, and we've all played Manhunt, but let's be honest, Manhunt is just hide and go seek for bigger kids. That's really all it is. But the person who has the advantage of Manhunt is whoever's property you're playing on.
Right.
Because that person knows their property inside and out. They know, you know, which tree is best to climb, which little area, bush is good to hide in. And that's the South here. They have that home field advantage.
They're the little kid in Home Alone. Pretty much.
Exactly.
You know, that's what guerrilla warfare is. If you usually, when we're talking about guerrilla warfare throughout the school year, you know, usually guerrilla warfare is successful. You know, you had pretty much dumb farmers who were the patriots who beat a superpower. Later on, when we get into Vietnam, you know, you have a bunch of rice farmers who were wearing sandals who were able to, you know, really, you know, we don't like to say it, was able to beat the American army and the French army as well before that. So guerrilla warfare is very, very effective. Beat that to death.
Yeah,
some of the differences.
We got the mini ball. I mean, this was, you know, this tiny little bullet about that big. It's actually shaped more like a football. Deadly accurate as opposed to the musket ball, which you really didn't know where it was going to go. Kind of like a pitcher throwing a knuckleball. It could go up, it could go down.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, you had no idea where it was going to go. But the mini ball was deadly accurate. Part of the reason why we have such carnage in the Civil War. We're fighting, still kind of using these old traditional tactics, but we have, you know, more advanced weaponry in this war.
Now everybody's usually drawn to these. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, but these two.
But these are the ones where it's like,
these are the
this is
two
really
main
gets it
reasons
done, you know?
why the North is going to win.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're able to move troops, you're able to move supplies, you're able to communicate that movement. You know, you look in this day and age, and we get into the future wars, you know, where there is a breakdown or where there is a problem, communication is usually the problem. Yeah. Is usually the problem. When we get into the effects of the Civil War, it doesn't get any better than this.
No. 5 years. Less than 5 years.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln ages, I would say, about 30 years.
Yeah.
He goes from being about 45 to about 75 in this picture because of the stress that he is under. He would sleep only about 2 hours a night. And I could only imagine putting myself in his shoes of like, you are one of the main reasons why 650 50,000 Americans are going to be dead at the end of this war.
Imagine carrying that around with you.
Like, more Americans died in the Civil War than every other war we have ever fought in combined. And one of the main reasons why is because everyone who died in this war was an American. You know,
and not only that, your wife is mentally unbalanced.
Totally.
And that's not being insensitive at all to make fun of wives or women in general. But his wife was later declared; she was actually later committed. So, you know, mental illness compared when you're looking at 2020 compared to then, you know, his wife was mentally unbalanced.
And his oldest son is like, Dad, I want to fight. Dad, I want to fight. Dad,
right.
I want to fight. His older son is actually there at Appomattox Courthouse when General Lee officially surrenders to General Grant and
right.
the war. It's
so the amount of that amount of distress is just ridiculous,
yeah.
And of course that's why.
And he was not just sitting in the White House. He actually toured battlefields.
Yes.
You know, after battles took place, he saw the carnage firsthand.
We had to change generals a couple times too.
Yeah. I mean, that would be like today, you know, President Trump or, you know, several years ago, President Obama or President Bush going to Iraq, going to Afghanistan and witnessing the destruction and death firsthand. They didn't do that.
Yeah. And when he did, compared to the presidents he just mentioned, he didn't have a secret service.
Yeah.
All right. So we're getting into the effects of this.
All right. Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation issued by Abraham Lincoln, you know, all slaves being held in the states that are in rebellion against the United States are henceforth and forever free. Lincoln issues this proclamation, declares that all slaves living in the Confederacy are free. How many people got freed by that?
Just the people of the South.
None. Nobody gets freed by the Emancipation Proclamation because technically the South was not part of the United States. They declared their independence. That'd be like King George III telling the Americans on July 4th, 1776, you have to pay your taxes. They'd be like, we don't have to listen to you. But what the Emancipation Proclamation does do is it changes the goal of the war. Not just change, I wouldn't say it changes, it adds a goal to the war.
Yeah.
Not just to preserve the Union, but we are now fighting to abolish slavery once and for all. Because don't forget, there are 5 states that had slaves that did not secede from the Union. Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware. If Lincoln freed all the slaves, those 5 states very well would have seceded from the Union as well. So we only proclaimed the slaves in the Confederacy be free.
So it's just, you know, when you're looking at these words, breaking them down, because eventually you're going to have a test on this, you know, you're looking at Emancipation Proclamation, you're like, whoa, those are big boy and big girl words, all right? Emancipate, free. Proclamation, strong statement. Right? Those are just things to kind of like keep in your head as you're moving forward.
But it's not until the 13th Amendment of 1865, yeah. 1865, that will actually abolish slavery once and for all.
This is 1863, war starts in 1861, so you're starting to see a shift in the war. When we're looking at the 2 economies, the northern one is going to do well. You know, manufacturing, industry, they're going to be doing well. The South's major crop, cotton, they're going to lose that trade with Britain. Right? If you don't have the ability to trade that crop, and that, you know, they have a country, a major superpower, mind you, who is not going to trade with you, you're losing money. What are you going to need to get this war going or continue it? Is money. Total war. Wow.
Yeah. William Tecumseh Sherman. His plan was to basically seek and destroy. 50-mile wide army, you know, marching through the southern countryside, stretching basically from Tennessee to the Atlantic Ocean, where they destroyed anything and everything they could find. They destroyed railroad lines, whatever railroad lines the South had, whatever telegraph lines, homes, businesses, plantations, you name it, it was destroyed. They were not only trying to destroy the South's ability to fight the war, but their will to fight. Because now I'm a Southern soldier and I know Sherman is on the march in the South, and I'm maybe part of Robert E. Lee's army up in Northern Virginia, and I know, oh my God, he's on his way to my town. Am I going to be thinking about, you know, the Union soldiers across the way from me? Or am I going to think about my family and being like, I need to go home and protect them?
Yeah.
You know, this is what the South looks like at the end of the war. It reminds me of European cities after World War II. It is left in ruin, absolute ruin.
Mentally, You know, it plays on you,
Yeah.
it wears on you. Okay, now if you're a soldier, again, you put doubt in that soldier's mind. You know, wait a minute, I'm fighting here. How's my family doing at home? The rail lines are being destroyed. Okay, so now you don't have the ability to move supplies or troops.
Yeah.
The manufacturing plants that you have down there, they're destroyed. You're not going to be able to produce those weapons you're going to need to continue that war. Crops are going to be destroyed. Now, of course, this is going to be one of these things that the South's going to have to deal with even after the war, is the whole rebuilding part, because this is really what the South is going to look like. I mean, destroyed. I love the fact that when we get to this, not to be insensitive, when you have total war, when you add the words as you just did, seek and destroy, students go, oh, seek and destroy. All right, I got it.
Yeah.
This is what seek and destroy really looks like here. I mean, if you think about this, this is not just, you know, Legos and Lincoln Logs that you're putting up and you're going, this is like, this is brick.
Yeah, so in the end,
all these cannonballs.
In the end, the North is victorious, not because they had better generals, not because they had better soldiers, because they had a better economy, because of railroads, because of telegraphs, because of their ability to produce war, to produce enough cannonballs to carry out total war, the ability to transport those cannonballs to the South, so Sherman could carry out these tactics. That the South's will, their heart, their desire is like ripped out of their chest, like that scene we were talking about from before, Indiana Jones. He just rips the heart. That's what the North did to the South. They ripped out their heart and their ability and will to fight.
And you talk about the Civil War, you talk about like this is like one of these things that historians still debate today. You know, why did the North win or why did the South lose? You know, what was the tipping point? And, you know, I kind of lean with what you were saying. You know, it's the economics and whatnot. You know, guerrilla warfare usually it wins. It's a successful tactic, especially against a superpower. But you see here, you know, fighting that defensive war really didn't work out for the South.
So Lincoln has guided us through the darkest time in our nation's history, without a doubt. These 4 years are by far and away the darkest time period in our nation's history. Now Lincoln has the monumental task of trying to bring the Union back together, and we're going to enter into a time period known as Reconstruction.